Welcome to the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I'm Coach Lisa Callahan, a recovered emotional eater. I ended decades of self-inflicted struggles with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, which revealed the secrets of what was going on underneath the food. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore topics that are rarely talked about, like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, people-pleasing, and decades of self-sabotaging behaviors. Rather than just focusing on the food, we'll dive deeper into aspects of who you are as a person and how you ended up relying on food for comfort to begin with. My mission is simple: to empower women to regain their confidence and prioritize self-love, regardless of the number on the scale. Discover what you've really been craving, and trust me, it's not about the food. This podcast is based on insights shared from the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, so be sure to check out the show notes for the link to the group and a complimentary gift just for you. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to another fun and insightful episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. The topic today is what to do when you're lacking willpower with food. So if you're struggling with telling yourself that you're having a lack of willpower with food, this episode is going to give you the exact recipe of what you're going to want to do to take your power back. I used to tell myself that food had power over me. I told myself that it controlled me. I felt like I was helpless when it was around. I convinced myself that I was weak, and I told myself that I was out of control and made it pretty clear to myself that I could not focus on anything if certain foods were in the house. So I told myself that I had to keep certain foods out of the house simply because I couldn't be trusted. Yeah, this felt like a pretty scary time in my life because I felt like I was against myself or something. Like I had a laundry list of self-criticisms and I blamed the food for why I had to feel that way about myself. So this became a sneaky pattern and habit of my subconscious mind that always led me to the same place, down in the garbage dumpster. So basically, by telling myself that I had no willpower, I was writing myself a quick ticket towards failure, guilt, shame, blame, regret, disappointment, and isolation. So when I told myself that I had a lack of willpower, I found myself in the same place over and over again and again. It was like a one-way trip into a dark and scary part of my mind where I was telling myself that I had no willpower. So then I became a victim of not having my own free will. And what I never recognized was that I was just using the word willpower in the worst possible way ever. Because words alone have power. There's a quote that I often refer to that says, "Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny." There are a million different versions of that all over the internet. I think that Gandhi had said probably one of the first ones, and then there's a billion different versions of that. But if you really think about what your thoughts are, what your beliefs are, and what your words are, and how they align with your character and the inside of you, and like what it is that you're willing to do to stand up for yourself and stop putting yourself in this place of self-doubt, you're going to recognize that whatever variation you see across the internet, words have power. And so in this episode today, I want to first start to challenge you by asking yourself if you are willing to stop saying that you have a lack of willpower. Because if you're feeling anything like I did back then, the words lack of willpower alone are probably leading you to feeling deflated. And so if we're going to help you get out of this situation where you might be feeling like you're starting from a place where your head is underneath the water, we're going to want to start with an inflated life raft, aka your mind. We're going to start to inflate that instead of starting with a deflated life raft, AKA your mind, where you're going to be discouraging yourself and standing in your own way. Does that make sense? So you might be thinking right now, but Lisa, I undeniably have a lack of willpower. If there are cookies in the house, I'm going to eat them all. If I pass a fast food restaurant, it calls my name. I cannot control myself. So telling myself that, anything else short of that I am not struggling with a lack of willpower would be lying to myself. And I am going to say, I hear you, my friend. And I'm not asking you to lie to yourself by telling yourself that you have willpower. All I'm asking you to do is stop telling yourself that you have a lack of willpower. Just stop telling yourself that. So it's like we have to stop the bleeding from somewhere. So if we can just agree that if you're telling yourself that you have a lack of willpower, that you're going to have to follow through with that statement. And so if you can just do one thing, and it's very simple, just agree that you can stop telling yourself that you have a lack of willpower. And that way we can give you at least half the chance of being able to heal this past habit. Because I promise you, the girl who no longer struggles with emotional eating, or with food calling her name, or with convincing herself that she's out of control with food, she is not telling herself that she's lacking willpower. So we want to start to try on that version of you on for size. Not a whole wardrobe change, just like maybe put on a new little scarf or a jacket, just a little trial. So if we can just start to feel what it feels like to stop telling ourselves that we have a lack of willpower, just that alone will start to plant the seed today to be able to get to that future version of yourself. The one who absolutely can have, holiday cookies. It's holiday time right now. And I have a huge batch of holiday cookies that a friend sent me in my freezer. I like cold cookies. The past version of me would have scorned like what this woman did to me. I would have been like, oh gosh, how could she do this to me? How could she send me these cookies? Does she not know? Like, does she want to hurt me? Like, I would have blamed this food for sitting here calling my name because I had a lack of willpower. Now, I just think that there's cookies in the freezer and I like them cold. So when I want one, I'll have one. And when I don't, I won't. They're no longer calling my name. So basically, all we're doing is just describing ourselves as a version of ourselves that we want to become. I used to have a coach tell me that if I wanted peas and carrots in April, I'd have to start to plant them in December. And so if this doesn't make sense to you, let me say it in a way that might be more clear. Just ask yourself this question. Is it more powerful to have a positive thought, or is it more powerful to not have a negative thought? I'll give you a minute to think about that. And I'll say it again. Is it more powerful to have a positive thought or to not have a negative thought? And the answer is to not have a negative thought. Because a negative thought will grow like a cancer and it'll take over every cell of your body. Like you will feel it everywhere and it'll come out in other parts of your life. It'll come out in lack of patience with yourself and with others. It'll come out with a lack of compassion with yourself and others. And that will mean that circumstances that happen in your day-to-day life will feel like you have no other option but to react to them in a negative way because you've got that inside of you already. You won't be able to take a pause and respond to things happening. It'll diminish your ability to be able to believe in yourself and convince yourself that you can do better. It'll make you feel like you don't even deserve to treat yourself better. Talk about a lie. Negativity will rot you from the inside out and it'll hold you back from ever reaching your long-term goals because it will diminish your true potential. So, if there's just one thing that I can convince you of today in this episode is how critically important it is for you to stop telling yourself that you have a lack of willpower. That's it. That's where you can begin. So in Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System, which is where we teach our students how to identify the root cause of their invisible emotional relationship with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, we call this building a new foundational relationship with yourself. It's creating a vision of your future self, a version of you who no longer has to say, I have no willpower. And since, she doesn't struggle with that anymore, you can start to behave like her. For example, these cookies in my freezer right now. If I was telling myself that I had no willpower, well, I would have to do something to prove that to myself. And I'd have to sit here all day thinking about those cookies because I had no willpower. And then I'd have to get up and get some because I'd have to show myself that I have no willpower. Because I don't tell myself any of that stuff, I just go about my day. Cookies are cookies. I am me. And so I can have the belief in myself, and therefore I don't have to tell myself that, I have no willpower. So it's like you're trying on this new version of yourself, just trying her on for size. And so that version of you, she will no longer think the words willpower equaling food. Like she won't think about those two words in the same sentence. Instead, she'll know that the word willpower actually refers to inner strength and personal freedom. It's the ability to stay focused on your long-term goals, make disciplined choices that will lead you towards a future version of yourself that you aspire to be, and follow through with commitments that you make to yourself, even when it feels like you're faced with the weight of the world on your shoulders. When you have that internal willpower, which is really just your courage and your strength, by the way, it simply means that you'll not be swayed by mindless distractions, cravings that lead you to emotional exhaustion, or urges that disconnect you from your inner peace. This type of willpower I want to teach you here is that you have the will and the power to stay connected with yourself as a human being. To exercise free will is to do what's best for you at all times so that you never abandon yourself. This means embracing your inner authority and making choices that align with your authentic self, your values, and those choices will always be aligned with what's best for you. They'll always have your best interest and your well-being as a top priority. So if you're telling yourself that you just don't have willpower and you're making not having willpower about the food, you're really suffocating your inner voice, which makes it really hard to hear your inner advocate, otherwise known as your spiritual self. So by not connecting with your spiritual voice, it's really hard to honor your truth, which makes it really easy to tell yourself a bunch of lies like, I lack willpower. This is the biggest lie of all, and you must stop telling yourself that immediately. Instead, start telling yourself that you are unbelievably strong and capable, and that you deserve to live an extraordinary life where there's inner peace, and you absolutely have the will and the power inside of you to step out of that dark place in your mind and convince yourself that you don't have to tell yourself that you don't have willpower, so that way you can step into your light and you can shine a light on your future self that's just waiting for you to take action. So now let's look at what does action look like, right? It's really easy for you to stop this recording, over and over and jot down or write down exactly what I just said. And what did she just say about inner authority and truth and peace and inner voice? And what's all that about? Wait a minute. I have the will to actually advocate for myself and my own best interest. Ooh, this is good stuff, Lisa. Great. Now what do you do about it? How do you actually take action? I am so glad you asked. Because if you're not willing to take your life into your own hands and to steer yourself away from these fearful, self-doubting voices inside of your head, you're going to keep going round and round in the circles of your own mind, otherwise known as your comfort zone. And your comfort zone means that you are actually dimming your own light. You are willing to stay in that comfort zone, which basically means that you're willing to live uncomfortably uncomfortable. And this is like telling yourself that you're comfortable sleeping on a bed of nails. Yeah, it's a trick, which is why you're going to have to give yourself permission to meet yourself right where you're at right now. And just know that your step one is just to stop telling yourself that you have no willpower. Once you do that, you'll clear out some of the cobwebs in your head and you'll make room for some new thoughts. The old thought of you not having willpower is growing cobwebs. It's been there for so long, you don't even know what it would look like to have a clearing in that space, to dust off the cobwebs, to have an opening so that way you could actually have a new thought. And that's why I don't want to tell you to start to try to convince yourself that you do have willpower, because actually, I don't want you to think about willpower and food in the same sentence at all. I just want you to stop thinking that thought right now, dust out the cobwebs, clear out some space in your head, give yourself free will and power so that way you'll know what the first, next, right step for yourself is. Notice we didn't say take all the steps. We just want to take the first, next, right one. And so I'm giving you this first one. This first one is to commit to stop telling yourself you have no willpower. And then you can keep coming back and listening to this podcast again and again and again so that you can hear what I'm saying without the urge to keep telling yourself that you lack willpower. And that way you're going to have a free mind to work with. So when I say a free mind, I really mean an open mind. And if your mind is closed, you can't accept any new ideas. So if you're right now feeling like you're resisting what I'm saying, if you're like, Lisa, I don't have any willpower, I can't trust myself around food, all of the things, and you're talking, you're just going to have to tell yourself to be quiet for a minute. So that way you can make a clear decision. Decide right now that you're willing to just, all you got to do, I'm not asking you to change everything. I'm just asking you to stop telling yourself you have no willpower. That's it. That's your first step. I'm giving it to you because a closed mind cannot accept any new ideas. So if your mind is locked around the thought that you have no willpower, you're going to have to open your mind first so that you can even embrace a new idea. So write that down. A closed mind cannot accept any new ideas. Since the future version of yourself, she has lots of new ideas because she's no longer stuck at this sticky point where she's telling herself she has no willpower. So she doesn't have to act like a person who has no willpower. She's free to do whatever she wants. We have to have you change the thought that you have no willpower first. And if you aren't willing to do that, just know that nothing's easy for the unwilling. So you will be making this process 1,000 times harder for yourself, just like we talked about sleeping on that bed of nails and telling yourself that it's comfortable. So this is what you'll do. You'll take a piece of paper out. You're going to write your name on it, and then you're going to write the words, open your mind. So mine would look like this. Lisa, open your mind. I have to be honest, when I first started this practice, it took me about 6 weeks to accomplish when I first began my journey of self-discovery. In fact, I started to say that mantra every time that I walked into a supermarket because I'd often feel taunted and tortured by the chips and the cookies and the crackers and the muffins and the bread and the cheese and the ice cream that I barely could make it out of the supermarket feeling like I was going to make it out alive because there was this little voice inside my head that was like, you have no willpower, Lisa, you know that. So of course, as I was going through the aisles, one of the things that I was telling myself was I had no willpower around food. So what was happening is that the food was talking to me. I gave it that power. So the way that I helped myself change this was by preparing my mantra ahead of time, telling myself I have an open mindset. So that way, when I was in the supermarket, I could start to embrace a new way of thinking. This really settled down my activation. It really settled down my nervous system because I went in prepared. I knew that if I gave my food that power, that it was going to be calling me and taunting me. And I did that. So when I went in changing my mindset and where I had the will to change, the will to change started to outweigh the power that I was giving away to food. So my will to support myself with love and kindness and value myself and speak to myself with encouraging words like I would a friend, that became my top priority. And because that was my top priority, that's what gave me back my willpower, right? My power, my personal willpower. And so I want you to think about how this scenario would play out if you had a friend and she said to you, hey, you know what? I'm walking into the supermarket and I really want to stay connected with myself. I really want to stay aligned with myself. I don't want the food to have power over me anymore. I don't want the food to just call my name. I'm going in. Can you come with me? And you're like, yeah, certainly, no problem. And then you got sitting there with your friend, walking side by side with her, and you told her, you reminded her of how she's taking care of herself. She no longer wants to sneak junk food into her mouth because she knows that she wants to feel good about herself. And all of those, thoughts that she had about food controlling her and food having power over her, they're just not true. That she has her best interest at heart and that she has her own back and that she can trust herself. So have an open mindset and keep walking down the aisle. You got this, girl. You got this. Now, picture the opposite. Picture what you're doing to yourself. Picture yourself. You got same scenario. You got this friend and she's like, gosh, I want to be able to trust myself. I want to be able to feel good in my own skin. I want this. I want that. And then you're like, all right, let's go in. And then picture yourself saying to her, you can't trust yourself. You might as well pick up those chips and ice cream right now because you don't have any willpower. What's the point? You just should grab it right now because come on, it's on a 2-for-1 sale. You're weak and helpless. You're never going to change. So you might as well just buy the junk food now because if you walk out of this store without it, you know what you're going to feel later. You're going to feel panicked. You're not going to have anything to munch on. So just get it over with. You have no power to stop this. Just surrender. Can you imagine yourself saying this to a friend who just told you that they wanted to change? Seriously, you would never do that. So please, please make certain that when you're doing this, that you are on your own team, that you're on the side that is cheering for yourself with encouraging words, with kind and positive attitude and gesture of peace and calm. You know what I mean? Think about the other scenario where you're back there going you can't do this. You're gonna die without the food. You better eat it Hurry up, get it, grab it. That's not calming. That feels horrible. That feels like survival. But you know what? You're not in survival. You're just in the supermarket, right? So de-escalate the drama. Listen to your inner voice and do this next time you go into a store or even where you're in a stressful situation where you start to convince yourself that you have no willpower and that you can't stop yourself. Just stop for a second. Take a pause. Mel Robbins actually talks about that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule. So just pause for a second and be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tell yourself your name and just say, I have an open mind. And you have everything it takes to be a good friend to yourself. So let's get this straight today. We're going to stop telling ourselves that we have no willpower. We're going to open our mind to a new way of thinking about ourselves. And this is the deal. No cutting corners, no hiding out, no sabotaging yourself, no dimming your own light. You will have to have the will and the power that's already inside of you to take back what is rightfully yours. Your health, your happiness, your confidence, your connection with yourself, your spiritual guide, which is your inner cheerleader. This is where you will discover the path of your integrity. The path of integrity means that you are whole and undivided. You're not two people. You're not like, you don't have the little, advocate on one side and the little version of yourself that's going to be stabbing yourself in your back the other side. Like, you have your own back. You have your best interest at heart. The path of your integrity is a path that you can never get lost on. And it's where you're going to be able to make those micro decisions that are ultimately going to lead you towards the path of how you're going to crush your food thing forever. So if you want to learn more about how to crush your food thing, and you want to learn about how to do that through taking a journey of self-discovery, I want to give you a couple of little opportunities. We have an amazing, amazing new course that is called Crush Cravings with Confidence Academy. And there is a link to get started for this course right in the show notes today. This one has 25 pre-recorded lessons that are specifically designed to give you a taste of how self-discovery can unlock your mindset and lead you towards freedom. As always, we always have a little bite-sized version of self-discovery called the Mindset Makeover, which is a great way to start your journey. It's 21 days to learn how to stop eating your emotions. So just as a review, let's get 3 words of wisdom out there and into your mindset right now before we end this episode. Number 1, have an open mind, because a closed mind cannot accept any new ideas. Number 2, remind yourself that what feels like a plateau might actually be a launch pad. If you're telling yourself that that comfort zone is comfortable, remind yourself that you might be telling yourself a lie, because what might feel comfortable and feels like that plateau might actually be that launch pad. So get off of that bed of nails and stop telling yourself that a bed of nails is a comfortable place to be, because that's just not true. And the last thing is your attitude determines your direction. Life is a gift to be enjoyed, not to be endured. Sometimes we feel like we tell ourselves these things like, if I could just get through my day, stop telling yourself that. You're not getting through your day. It's an experience. It's to be enjoyed. So give yourself permission to change. Give yourself permission to choose a different mindset so that you can create a different life for yourself. All right. If you have any questions, I'm really easy to reach. If you have any questions about this episode, or if you want to give me an idea of a topic that you'd like to hear about in this podcast, you can just send me an email at lisa@coachlisacallahan.com, and so that I will know to reach out for you. And also, if you like this episode, please let me know. Please push the like button, because it's really good to get those, like buttons on there. So that way I know that, I'm doing my best for you, that you're enjoying this process and you're enjoying this time with me. And also, if you don't mind, leave me a comment. I read all of them and I really, really enjoy connecting with you. So leave me a comment so that way I know if you like this episode. All right. That is all we have for now, and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now. All right, my beautiful friend, that brings us to the end of another episode from the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening today and took something from our conversation that you are going to put into immediate action. I love spending time with you and would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with at least one friend today who you think might be struggling too. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any other amazing topics. And please, please do leave me a review. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.